said, yes, I'm gay. I am gay.
My mum would always say to me, you're more.
There was nothing I could do about being publicly outed.
I remember at one point she told me, don't ever go in Mardi Gras, because if someone might see you.
Yeah. I just haven't done like serious interviews like this in a while. Okay.
Who was the first person I came out to? That's a really good question.
I think the first person I had to come out to was me, and I don't think I was a very good person to come out to.
The first person I had to come out to was myself. I think I was in denial for a very long time.
The first person I came out to was my friend Claire Watts. She's a saintly human.
Probably my best friend, yeah.
The first person that I came out to when I was still in Malaysia was my best friend Linda.
I never had to come out. It was very obvious to everyone around me that I was either gay or going to become a woman. There was no closet. I glided out of an armoire.
I like to think of coming out as more of a process of like inviting in. I chose to invite in my closest friends.
We were best friends from high school, and we're still best friends today. And yeah, I think I just briefly brought it up, and I'm pretty sure she was like along the lines of like, yeah, well, obviously, like having a best friend. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional. Having like a best friend that didn't like overreact to it and was just like, yeah, I know, was so important, because I like didn't have that safety within family or anyone else.
When I came out to my best friend, I didn't expect that response at all. I was hoping that I would have an ally and I would have a friend who, would be supportive. I didn't think she would react the way she did, and she was like, what will your family think about you, and like, don't you want to have kids and family? And I was like, whoa, like, you're the last person I thought I would get this from.
So I realized that I was attracted to the same sex around about when I was 13. And when I told my mum, she took me to a therapist. And so it was this progressive idea of, instead of closing it off and stopping a child's development, we're going to encourage it. Except what the therapist did was tell me, oh, you experience same-sex attraction? You're attracted to other boys? I'm like, well, yeah. So she said, well, that means you're gay. She didn't ask me once about my attraction to women or to people of a different gender to me. Every time I was called gay or told I was gay and forced to feel pressured to sort of keep up that appearance, it eats away at your soul. Being in a closet, no matter what closet that is, keeping a secret is so damaging to who you are. It's funny to sort of go through that zigzag of the way I described it, and it's quite funny to look at it that way of, going from straight to gay to bi now. But the funny thing is that who I actually am has never changed. Who I am has been a dead straight line.
My family always knew that I was, and they never said the word different, and I never say the word different because it means that it's other. My mum would always say to me, you're more. Like, there is more about you, and so when I came out to her, she still cried because it was like news to her, because she's a drama queen, that's where I get it from. But she was the first person I spoke to because I knew that I could trust her and I knew I was safe with her.
In terms of coming out, actually putting it on paper or saying it to someone, it was probably to my mother, and it was in a letter.
And was your mother accepting?
She never accepted it. She kind of learned to live with it. But I think it did damage our relationship significantly. She was always upset with me for some reason, and I think that may have been at the core of it. I didn't get married, I didn't have the kids, and fair enough on some level, is that she was expecting grandchildren like, her friends, and her friends were not sensitive to the fact that she was not going to have grandchildren.
I had a whole series of 3-week relationships. One of these boyfriends gave me a ring to wear, and I wore it on my pinky, and my mother saw it. She picked me up from something, and I wasn't living at home, and she saw the ring and she said, "Why are you wearing a ring on your pinky? Why don't you get a ring that fits you properly?" And I had to say, "Oh, it was given to me." And she asked me a series of questions, and I'd committed to actually answering them all honestly. I said, "Why would Robin give you a ring?" And he said, "Oh, because we're seeing each other regularly." And he said, "Is that dating?" And off we went. And she said, "Are you gay?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I was in tears. I was crying by the end of it. And I can't, with hindsight, I can't work out whether that was because of the relief or because of the disappointment I knew was going to come from that. The disappointment, which lasted for a good, 15 years after that moment.
I think having the support of your parents, I think we really underestimate what that means. And I think for people like myself that come from the cultural background that I come from, I think when you make the decision to inform people of who you are, you do run the risk and you understand the risk of losing them.
My mum actually passed away when I was quite young, so I never had to come out to her, which is kind of a bit of a blessing and also not, because I would have loved to obviously share that with my family, I guess. But also, sometimes it's like, I'm glad that I don't have to have the adversity of coming out to my family, who might not be as accepting of me.
The first friend I ever came out to or ever invited into my life and told them hey, this is me. Again, lesbian stereotype. And it was the girl I fell in love with. I told her over the phone, I was really scared. I remember the phone call very vividly. And I remember that she was like, "What's wrong? You can tell me anything." And I was like, I think I like you. She's like, "Well, I like you too." And I was like, no, I think I like you. Like a crush. And she went quiet for a few minutes, and I had was getting really anxious and attached to the landline, and this was back when phones were attached to a landline, and I was using my parents' home phone, and then she said, "Well, what if I like you too?" And I think I got really lucky in that sense, in that the one lesbian stereotype I didn't perpetuate is that I didn't fall for my straight best friend.
There was a moment, and I don't even know when it happened, where my mother shifted. And I was talking to my sister about this, and it was her, she did this. She started to have conversations over a period of time, actually, talking to Mum about accepting who I was. Projecting forward to the idea of what would have been that if I died, if I killed myself, if I what that would mean. And so she was working on this the whole time. And something happened where my mother just rang and asked after me and asked after my partner and said, we should meet him. And that was a big thing. That was a big thing.
My parents separated when I was 13, 14. And I've always had a very challenging relationship with my dad. And I don't blame them, because there's, in our small town in Ipoh, there weren't a lot of queer people, even to this day in Malaysia, that are visible. I remember my parents wanted to take me to see a psychiatrist, and my parents would say really mean, hurtful things to me. And I kind of grew up with a lot of trauma based on how my parents would react to my, being queer and gay. I recently reconnected with him, and I didn't want to hide such an important part of who I am, because my identity is it's in my art, it's in my music, and I can't share all those very important things that I'm doing in life. So I came out to him, and I was ready to, like, you know, I was ready for him to not talk to me anymore. And I was very surprised when he replied, and like he told me he's okay about it, and like, and he said to me he wanted me to live my best life. Yeah. And I remember saying something like, "Oh, thank you for accepting me for who I am." Like,
I think the first time I kind of started talking publicly about being queer was doing stand-up, because that's something I do, and I joke about everything that happens in my life, from like my job to my friends, and obviously my like dating life. And
Was there a specific joke you came out with?
I think the joke was something really simple. It was like, so I got a girlfriend, and then if people were like really quiet, I'd be like, you're homophobic. You should laugh at that. You should be happy for me. I finally found someone. I wasn't worried about how people would react, because when you're a stand-up comic, you're honestly just putting yourself out there.
So if coming out in a public sense is going onto the dance floor and ripping your top off and dancing like crazy to a band, women's band playing I Am Woman, that was probably the first public I'm here kind of statement.
The first time you publicly came out, you were telling me about this dance.
Yes, you want to hear more? Yeah, so what can I say? I mean, it was just one of those experiences I've never seen before, and honestly, and I've never seen it again, actually. I don't even know that I can find the word for it. It was completely overwhelming, and in a really good way. And I felt like it was one of those peak moments in my life, probably. 200 pairs of breasts. You get a pretty good idea of variation.
I publicly came out on January 21 of 2018. And then I was just sort of sitting there on my computer, and I just sort of started typing. And then suddenly there was a big message, and it was back when people still used Facebook, I guess, or people who weren't really old. But I just copied and pasted and just hit send, just shut my computer. I left my phone on my bed. I went to the beach and felt like really symbolic of like, jump in the water, a man, and emerge a beautiful trans woman. But then, eventually went home, and I just sat on my balcony, had a little happy cry while I read all the supportive messages from everybody. And like, I always say, like, I remember like, while I was doing that, having the feeling of like, this is the happiest I have ever felt to this point in my life.
I was outed by a newspaper and then a magazine. It was completely beyond my control. I think the first thing I did was I hid, and for a couple of days, because there were calls, people demanding to know if this was true. Had that not happened, I may never have come out as trans. But then I just sort of became careless. I stopped caring because everyone knew anyway. There was also a lot of excitement around it. You know, people sometimes don't realize, they just sort of see you in the paper and they think, oh my God, how amazing, you're in the paper. The hairdressers at the salon I was going to, they were very excited by all the pictures, and they were oohing and ahhing over how gorgeous I looked. You know, but it wasn't the point. The point is these papers outed me. I took that paper to anti-discrimination, and I forced them to reword things. I won in conciliation. They agreed to report on transgender people more respectfully, and they did a editor's note on headlines that I demanded be changed. It changed my life. I may not have become a trans advocate had that not happened at that time.
I do not remember the first time I came out publicly, though I do remember David McAllister, my partner of now 15 years, giving an interview with a newspaper and outing me to the world. So now if you put my name into Google, apparently David's name pops up next to it. I go, but it was never really a secret, but it was one of those things that he was so proud of. He put it into an interview.
Was it positive?
The article was positive. It was all about him. That's the other thing. I think it was maybe my ego. I don't think it was about being outed at all, but the idea of going, oh, now I'm your handbag. Oh, great. Why, I'm my own person. So it's a bit of that kind of stuff.
Ooh, I think the first time I publicly came out, I didn't say the words. I'm very much like a doer. And this was at my workplace. Like we were doing shows in theaters all the time. And at one of the opening nights, I didn't even tell anyone who my +1 was. And it was my partner at the time, who was my boyfriend. And I introduced him to the company. And I remember my boss at the time was saying, oh, so you're Sarah. Sarah was Scott. And I lied and said that he was a she. So that was the first time I publicly came out.
I didn't come out at work until I think August of that year, but it was really nice. But it was also really annoying because I sent like a big company email out to everybody and then just essentially had like a 2-hour admin task the next day responding to everybody who'd said something nice. Like, thank you. Oh God, I wish I hadn't done this actually.
I look back on those old days and I thank God that they are behind us. I'm an executive in a corporation now. And I hope that that's how trans people will be judged in the future, that they can go into corporations and become lawyers and doctors or whatever.
The fact that your sexuality does or doesn't actually affect who you are, your ideas, the way you think might be affected by the cultural milieu you're in. And I think, yes, I see that. But it doesn't affect the quality of what I do. In fact, if anything, it helps me become more articulate, clearer about understanding difference and about embracing those differences in a way in all of the things that I do.
I think if I could go back and give advice to me about coming out, it would probably just be like, don't be scared. Like, it's gonna be good. Like, it's 2018. Like, it's mostly okay.
I think in popular media we have this idea that coming out is always this big moment. You're bursting out of the closet, telling everyone in your life, or dealing with the acceptance or adversity that comes with coming out. But sometimes coming out can kind of be quiet. Nobody knows or notices, and people kind of learn over time.
Be very wary and really remember that when you are informing people and coming out, you're not seeking acceptance, and you shouldn't be seeking acceptance, because this acceptance needs to come from here for you to be able to inform someone of something that's really special about yourself. I think it's really valid to feel like you want to be accepted. But don't be disappointed if it doesn't go off the way that you expect it to go or the way that you want it to go.
That young self who said, I've got to get out of here, and got in the car and drove away over unsealed road and with no money and all of that. That was a good decision. That was a really good decision. Somewhere inside I knew that was going to have to happen.
It was really difficult, but it was the best decision I ever made. It was a moment where I finally felt free, a moment where I finally felt able to be the person I am and have the relationships that I wanted to have, and it's enabled me to have just wonderful experiences and find my community.
It's always going to be scary, telling people about who you are, but you're going to find a lot of allies who will make it an easier process for you, and that there's nothing wrong with who you are. And I think I would tell myself that so many times because I think for a very long time I didn't believe it.